All right, I've been given the sign to go. We're going to get started. I'm Charles Chamberlain, the Executive Director for Democracy for America, and this is a special election DFA Live with Michael Moore. Let's begin tonight with a quick poll. We have thousands of DFA members on this call from across the country, and we want to know how you're feeling about Election Day. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you checking the polls constantly? So here's how to record how you're feeling. If you're listening live online, you can just click your choice on the screen. But if you're on your cell phone, you want to choose on a spectrum of 1 to 5. So hit the 1 key if you're really nervous, hit 5 if you're super excited, and one of the other numbers if you're somewhere in between. Like if you're like me, and I click number 3, feeling sort of a mix of nervousness and nausea with excitement. So with that, click 1 if you're mostly nervous, 3 if you're in the middle, and 5 if you're fired up and ready to go. I see lots and lots of votes coming in. It's fantastic. In 1 week, we'll know who controls the White House, Congress, and critically elected positions at the state and local level. You have the power to shape these elections, and we know that you and other DFA members like you are working incredibly hard to support progressive DFA Democrats. Tonight, we want to take a moment to preview the next 7 days with Michael Moore and discuss what we can do to ensure that we win. Now, DFA members are on track to make 2 million phone calls, voter contact calls directly into key races all around the country for candidates this cycle. Last week alone, DFA members called for 223 hours, and I want to shout out 2 incredible volunteers in particular. Dermot Telfer, she called for 7.5 hours this weekend and made, get ready, 12,781 dials. That's a lot of dials. That's a lot of voters she contacted. Number 2 is Bob Hughes. He called for 6 hours and made 12,683 dials. This is the type of people power that will make a difference this November, and you can sign up for a shift right now by going to dfadialer.com. That's www.dfadialer.com. I spelled it out because obviously our website's Democracy for America, but this is dfadialer.com. There are also local Get Out the Vote efforts taking place at campaign offices all around the country as part of our Political Revolution in Your Backyard program. So you can do offline in the campaign office events, knocking on doors, making phone calls from a campaign in candidate offices around the country. So you can search for an event near you by going to democracyforamerica.com/backyard. Now, before I bring Michael on the call, I want to make sure you know that he would love to take your questions tonight. So if you'd like to ask Michael a question during the call, please press 0 on your phone, and you'll be connected with a DFA staff member. Again, please press 0 right now if you'd like to ask a question. And if you're listening to this call on our website at democracyforamerica.com, you can also submit a question through the live web stream. Now, looking back at the poll, we got a lot of votes in there. Looks like we're pretty universally split between nervous, somewhat nervous, and mixed. So I think across the board, I think we got a lot of energy going into this election, and we all know what's at stake. And so it's critically important that we're getting out there and doing the work we need to do. So with that, I'd like to welcome our chair, Jim Dean, to the call. Jim, are you there?
Hey, Charles, I'm here, and I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us tonight on this call and taking time out of your schedules to be with us. I especially want to thank Michael Moore for all of your fantastic work over the years and for putting out this great film, Michael Moore in Trumpland, which I encourage everybody to go see. Little known fact, folks, Michael Moore is tied with Bernie Sanders for the biggest ever DFA conference call we've ever had when we organized movie nights to promote his movie documentary, Sicko. So we are absolutely thrilled to have him on the line again tonight to discuss this election, to discuss Michael Moore in Trumpland. His films, as you all know, have been fantastic films, humorous, but also unflinching look at our country and our politics, and really are a must-watch. So I really can't wait to hear Michael's thoughts on this election. And no reason to wait, no reason to keep talking. We've got a lot to discuss in a short amount of time. So with that, I'd like you all to give it up and welcome Michael Moore. And Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Charles. Thanks everybody on the line who's listening. I'm calling you from backstage here at MSNBC. I just came off live off of Chris Hayes' show where I outed him for. He actually has a big screen where he's watching the Cubs in the World Series while he's doing interviews. So, but it's really an honor to be back here on the phone again with Democracy for America and everybody who's been doing this incredible work these past few weeks. I can't personally thank you enough as a fellow citizen that you understood a long time ago that this is not a spectator sport. It's a participatory event. Nobody sits on the bench. And more than ever, in this next week, we are going to need everybody off the bench, everybody working. The people who are in your poll who are vacillating between nervous, a little nervous, extremely nervous. I'm very, very nervous. Now, of course, I've been saying for months that Trump had a good chance of winning. A lot of people thought, well, that can't happen because look at how crazy the guy is. And, we had such a great convention. The Democratic convention was incredible. Hillary, amazing in all three debates. Hillary going the extra mile or two, reaching out to Bernie's voters. I'm one of them. I've never seen the winning candidate adopt 2/3 or more of the platform of the person she defeated. It's amazing. And I've been telling people who voted for Bernie this last week or so, there's no reason to be upset still or anything, because we should be celebrating. We pulled off something historic. Bernie Sanders won 22 states. A Democratic socialist won 22, almost half the states of this country. In our lifetime, this happened. It's absolutely incredible. It's so exciting. And to see then Hillary adopt so much of what everyone believed in who voted for Bernie, it doesn't get this good. And for the few people that are still, I don't know, I don't want to, I just say to them, I said, look, we got to take the victories we get and move the ball down the field here. We're not being asked to vote for Margaret Thatcher, folks. This is a pretty damn good person who has fought her whole life for people. And while some people may have their political disagreements with her, she's a decent, honest person. I don't understand I don't know how she's suffered through all the attacks that she's gone through. And the fact that in the final week, she's got to put up one more time with somehow her emails are connected to some other guy that's on his laptop. It's like, I don't know. If I were a woman, and maybe tonight I will play the role of a woman here, because seriously, folks, women have had to put up with this for long enough. This kind of BS, and I just don't. I feel bad. I feel bad for Hillary, but I'm going to feel really bad for us if somehow this has depressed the Hillary vote. That's my main concern. The people that are going to vote for her are going to vote for her. People are going to vote for Trump are going to vote for Trump. But I'm concerned that maybe 10% of the people who are going to vote for Hillary got their vote depressed this weekend. And they're just like, yeah, okay. But they're not going to do any work this week. Or they're not going to bring 5 or 10 people with them to the polls next Tuesday. That's what's going to hurt us here. So that's why we have to double and triple our efforts in these last 7 days, because it's just absolutely critical that we understand that we are the majority in this country. We live in a liberal country. The majority of our fellow Americans believe in every single issue that Democracy for America believes in. You name the issue. Equal pay for women, majority of the country believes in it. Climate change, majority of the country believes it's happening. Pro-choice, the majority of the country is pro-choice. Let people marry someone of their same gender, majority of the country supports it. Stronger environmental laws, the majority of the country wants it. You go down each of the issues, our fellow Americans take the liberal position. So it's not a question of whether or not we're the majority. That we live in a country where twice our fellow Americans have elected a man whose middle name is Hussein. That's the country we live in, folks. But that's not the issue. If people could vote from home, Hillary would win in a landslide if people could vote on their remote control or their Xbox. But that's not how we vote. we're asking them to vote in the second week of November this year, not the first week, the second week, which we call winter in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio and New Hampshire. And a low voter turnout, I'm afraid, benefits Donald J. Trump. So we have our work cut out for us here this week, but we need to move forward and not be filled with anxiety or depression or whatever, because we represent the majority. The majority is a liberal majority, and we cannot let them down by having somebody who does not represent the majority of our fellow Americans end up in that White House next Tuesday. So I've talked too long, and I'm dying to take your questions, but I wanted to just again thank you for what you're doing. We've got a lot ahead of us here, and I'm really excited. And thank you again, Jim and Charles, because I'm doing a Facebook Live show every night this week, and I believe on Thursday night we're going to do it with Democracy for America as my co-host. So we'll get even more people out. But thank you, and let's turn it over for some questions.
Fantastic. And I have to say, you couldn't, I think the point you're making here about, not being depressed, make sure you're going out and you're actually doing the work, that this isn't an election where we can sit back and say, all right, just my own vote's enough. We still need to make sure that we are bringing people to the polls with us in great numbers. I think perhaps the best example of this is if you think about what's happened in Britain with the Brexit vote. It polled terribly. All the polls showed that it was not going to pass. And because of that, people believed that their vote wasn't needed. So they stayed home and they didn't vote. But the people that wanted Brexit went out there. They were motivated. They were engaged, and they voted, and it happened. We have the exact same thing that could happen with Trump. We've got very mobilized, engaged, enthusiastic Trump supporters out there ready to go to the polls. We have to make sure that we do it ourselves too, because when we vote, we win. When we get out to the polls, exactly as you said, the majority of Americans support all of our positions, and that's why it's critically important that we get all of us out. So now with that in mind, there's been a lot of October surprises this year, right? From Trump bragging about sexual assault to, this recent, Combi proving why Democrats should never put a Republican in charge of anything. But you added your own fantastic surprise to this mix, Michael, with your new movie called Michael Moore and Trumpland. Which I'll add is available on iTunes right now for just $5. But for our members who haven't seen it yet, could you tell us a bit about the film, what motivated you to make it, what you're trying to do with it?
Yes, in August I wrote a one-man show, and then I decided instead of performing it in Ann Arbor or Madison or Berkeley, I would go and perform it in a town in Ohio that was 80% Republican. And so we found a small town in Ohio, 26,000 registered voters in the county, only 1,900 registered Democrats out of the 26,000. So I went deep into what some people would call enemy territory. I don't see them as the enemy. I grew up amongst them. They're the working class. They're upset. They're angry. They used to be part of the middle class, and they're voting for Trump in many ways. Not because they necessarily agree with him, but they see him as the human Molotov cocktail that they get to throw into the system and blow it up, just like the Brits, the working class in Britain did when they wanted to send a message. Well, they sent the message, and they realized a week or two later, whoops, we didn't mean to send that strong of a message. Well, it's too late. And if they're sending a message by voting for Trump, what I encourage you and others to do is, when you encounter people like this, to have empathy, understand why they're angry and upset, and acknowledge the legitimacy that they are upset at the system that has let them down. They don't need a wagging finger from us, or to be scared into thinking Trump is. And the more you scare them about Trump, actually, the more they like Trump, because they love the idea he's going to blow it all up. And Chris was just saying to me on the show, or even Trump thanked me, but he tweeted me last week saying, "Thank you, Michael Moore, for pointing out I'm going to blow up the system." Wow. I got him to actually say it. He actually, acknowledged that, as he puts it, he's going to drain the swamp. The swamp is called our American democracy. And that's exactly what he wants to do, and he's very upfront about it. So what Jim just said here, or I don't know, maybe it was Charles, about thinking if you think your vote is enough, if you or any of your friends are planning to vote next Tuesday thinking, oh, good, I voted, that's enough, we're going to lose. We are going to lose. It's not going to make it with just one vote. Everybody's got to bring 5 to 10 people with them. Everybody's got to do whatever they can do this week to work to make this happen. We can make it happen, but it's going to be about who turns out the most people. And you know that especially when it's winter, especially when we're going to have a low voter turnout because so many people are just totally dissatisfied with this election, the candidate that has the most rabid supporters is the candidate who is going to win. And I don't think we define our fellow Hillary voters as rabid. We know what we're up against here, but damn it, this is our country. We represent the majority. We've moved things forward with President Obama. We moved Hillary forward. Hillary is, every time she speaks, her first answer in the last debate, in her very first answer, she's talking about income inequality, marriage equality, how we're going to get people on the Supreme Court that are not going to hurt people, not going to believe that they have a right to their fellow citizens' reproductive organs. She doesn't stop, and she's walked through the fire for 30 years. It's so impressive. She is going to be a fighter for us, and I just want to say, I know you guys have said this in your letters, and I've said it in the letter. I just has to be said again. We get the Senate back in our hands. Welcome to the new chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist in charge of the budget. In my lifetime, I want to see this happen. It's going to happen next Tuesday. I'm confident of that, but it's only going to happen if we are using every waking moment from now until then to make it happen.
Yeah, that's so on Mark. And when you think about, it was just December 2015 that Hillary's campaign was talking about, well, it was before the campaign had officially launched, but they were leaking that what they were going to do is they were going to run against gridlock, that they were going to be the campaign about making bipartisan solutions. And the reality is that is so off message. That is so 20 years ago. And what was really exciting about what we did with Bernie and with Bernie's campaign and the leadership that he showed and running on economic populism is that he woke up the Democratic establishment to the point where Clinton had to reform her campaign, had to understand that this is the critical issue that's motivating voters and get people out. Anyway, with that, I'd like to make sure that we get to direct questions from our members. We've got a lot of questions coming in, so let's just do it right away. I've got Michael from Boca Raton. Michael, are you on the call?
I'm on the call.
Fantastic.
Michael from Boca.
Actually from Manhattan, but I'm down in Boca. So I've got a kind of insight.
Well, when you say Boca, we automatically assume Manhattan. They're interchangeable.
I agree they are, but I wanted to be close to Trump's Southern Palace, so I felt like
good for you.
Here for this.
Good for you.
Anyway, Michael, I know you're really talking mainly on this call to people who have to contact voters, and so you're trying to come up with the most constructive messages you can, and I completely agree with that. But given stuff that's going on in the last week and how Trump is suddenly on the offense, I just want to take 30 seconds to suggest a few ways that Hillary's people could go back on offense also. I just feel like there are a couple of issues that haven't been pushed hard enough about Trump. The Russian
Go for it. We want to hear as much as we can from people. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to urge emphasizing the Russian connection, the Trump University, the fact that that's not coming up for trial until just after the election, but it will be coming up, and that other trial, the despicable trial about the underage girl who apparently he had activities with, that's coming up in December. It's difficult to put that in when you're contacting voters, but maybe in a more public message, those things have to get out there more.
Yeah, any thoughts on that, Michael? Do you think that they're, really covering enough of the, exposing Trump for enough of the things that he's responsible for? He's got something like, was it 20 different lawsuits, or maybe it's even double that, and you don't see the media really talking about that. So do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I retweeted a post that Hillary posted yesterday from Slate, where the headline was how equal the sins of Hillary versus the sins of Trump, and how equal it is. And of course, sarcastically, the headline is saying that. And you click on this, you can see this on go to my Twitter feed, and on Hillary's sins, number one, her emails. And then on Trump's column, I kept scrolling and scrolling. There were so many things that were listed of what this man has done. The ethics violations, the potential legal violations, the lies, one lie after another. Yes, I'm going to release my tax returns. You know, the different things that he's still in court on. Trump University, as you mentioned, the comments, some of the ones that have been made that haven't received as much attention. The video of him as he's going down that escalator and coming up the escalator is a 10-year-old girl, and he starts eyeballing her. And then says, and there's a camera going, and says to the person next to him, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. You know, if you're a teacher in a school and you heard another teacher say that about a 10-year-old student, that girl over there, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years, what would you do? I think you'd be down in the principal's office within 2 minutes, right? As a decent citizen, not just because legally as a teacher you actually have to report that sort of thing. You would report it because this is not who we want in the White House. Now, we're scratching our heads going, how come people have heard about Trump University? They have heard these things. Why isn't there more opposition to him? Again, I would the time that we're going to take now going door to door and making these calls that to try and turn people that are sort of for him or definitely for him is a lot of time. And I don't know if we have, it's too labor intensive at this point. We have to get out the natural base, the majority of this country that supports the positions of Hillary Clinton. The people that want to vote for her, they're a little uncomfortable with this or that or whatever. If you watch my movie, I give all the reasons why, you know, these things that people say about her. But when you ask them, you know, they say, oh, Hillary's a liar. Okay, tell me some lies. They have a hard time. Well, her emails. Well, that wasn't. Well, okay. Yeah, she didn't. You know what? I think the thing that Comey said about her in his testimony this summer that was the most telling, he said the most interesting thing about Hillary Clinton is that when you go into her office at the State Department, you saw something you don't see in any other government office in Washington, D.C. She has no computer. It was weird, he said. There's like no computer in her office. I mean, with all due respect to my fellow baby boomers, and she is in the front end of the baby boom, she's a 69-year-old baby boomer. And if you're young and listening to this, you know what that means, because we're constantly calling you to tell you, to have you tell us how to make our device go back on or how to load the ink in the printer. You know, she simply just wasn't skilled. There wasn't some nefarious thing going on here. She just didn't know what she was doing, and she wanted the private server. Why? Because she has been attacked and abused relentlessly for decades. So she's a little gun shy. She has maybe a little PTSD from it. So she's thinking what you would think. I don't want my private emails to my daughter, to my husband, to my friends. You know, I don't want anybody having access to my private life because I have suffered enough. And I don't blame her for that. Now, maybe it wasn't the right decision. Maybe she should have done this or that. But, you know, am I better off now that I know how much that she liked watching The Good Wife Sunday nights at 9 p.m.? This is fucking ridiculous, folks. The polar ice caps are melting. There are millions of refugees coming out of Syria. We have serious, serious problems. And we're talking about her emails still. Again, to quote Bernie Sanders, enough with the damn emails.
Yeah. Are you still there, Michael, or did we just lose you?
No, I was comparing myself to Larry David, and I thought, nah, not quite as good.
Got it. Excellent. Well, I think those points, it makes a lot of sense. Let's make sure that we get to our next caller. We've got Jen Senko calling in from looks like from New York City. Jen, are you on the line?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Jen?
Why don't you give us a question?
Oh, hey, Jim and Charles and Mike. It's Jen Senko.
Hey, Jen. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, so my question is there a plan in place? Trump has been riling up his mob and encouraging them to go watch and observe at the polls. And, of course, this is going to be in these areas where there's mostly people of color. So, obviously the thing to fear is that they're going to be intimidating them, and they're going to be supposedly poll watching. Well, do we have a plan in place where we can watch those poll watchers? Do you know what I mean?
There's not a specific plan in place, but I know people in Detroit who are going to go there. And they've organized a Hugs for Voters a group where they're going to be there to be supportive of people going to vote and to let them know. I mean, they're basically acting in the same way that women who go to protect women at Planned Parenthood centers and whatever against the crazies that are out there trying to harass them. And they go in there and they escort them and they help them and they give them a lot of TLC. And I think our presence there at polling places like that, I think would be very powerful. It has to be nonviolent because that the other side is they're some of them are unhinged and they're being encouraged by their leader to respond with force. So, but I think it's a wonderful idea. There's no time to organize anything like that right now, but please put the word out there. And if you live in places, especially with places that have Black and Hispanic voters, and it's a great thing to do on Election Day if you're looking for something to do.
Although I would argue that when it comes to, nothing is better than actually making direct voter contact. I mean, as Michael made the point of in an answer earlier in the call, it's critically important that we bring not just ourselves, but as many people to the polls as possible. This is a persuasion election. This is not a persuasion election. This is a mobilization election, which means that we really need to find our supporters and make sure that they actually get there. So I would argue that even more important than worrying too much about this kind of disenfranchisement, let's leave that to the lawyers. Let's leave this to the police. Let's leave this to the people that are actually being paid by the system to do the poll watching. And let's make sure that what we're doing is we're calling voters on the phone directly and asking them to make sure that they go and vote, or we're knocking on doors directly, or we're driving people to the polls by going into a local campaign office. And I want to remind everybody that you can do that from democracyforamerica.com/backyard. You can find events you can sign up for, or you can go to dfadialer.com and sign up for a phone shift. With that, let's make sure we get to the next question. I have Sharon calling in from Montclair, New Jersey. Sharon, are you on the line?
Hi, yes, I am. Thank you for taking my call. I'm so excited about this election. My question is, what can I do to make sure people know that there is an election in my community? I don't see any signs. People are not really talking. I go up to people and ask them about who I want to know who they want to vote for. But I have an idea. I told the person that I spoke to that I have a 3-paragraph little message that says, talking about getting out the vote for Hillary Clinton. And I call it the 10 people vote. I suggest everyone call 10 people to encourage them to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yes, I agree with this. And let me tell you what I do every election. I start it the day before the election. I go to my own address book right in my phone. Sometimes, like we're all making these calls to strangers to get out to vote. We forget to actually call the people we know. We all know a lot of people, and we know a lot of people in swing states. Go into your own address book over the weekend and make a plan to start calling the people or texting the people or emailing the people you know that are in your address book. They are family members. They are friends. They're coworkers. They're people you're going to school with. You have a whole bunch of people that need to be reminded to go. And I had lunch today with somebody who had just remembered a friend of hers was going to be out of town next Tuesday, and just remembered she was going to be out of town. And she said, you got to vote. It's in that state, it's too late to get an absentee ballot now. But you could still show up to the city clerk and vote. Just her telling her that reminded her, and she went down before she was leaving town and voted at the city clerk's office. So I'm a big fan of what you just said. 10 people, if it's 10 people an hour, 10 people a day, start in your own book, sign up, as he just said, on the DFA site to do these things. My plan on Election Day, I'm not going to do what I suggested to Jen. I'm not going to go and stand and deal with the voter suppression issue. We'll fight that fight if we have to. What I am going to do, my plan right now is to be in Gainesville, Florida, and I'm going to be driving around, picking people up and giving people rides to the polls. And I'm going to go on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm going to say, hey, it's Michael Moore. It's really me. And, if you need a ride to the polls, just sign up here. And I'm going to try and get as many people as I can to the election places there. So in whatever way you can do this, through DFA, yourself personally, whatever, this is, like he said, I just want to reiterate this. This is about mobilization and turnout. We are no longer in the persuasion game. We do not have the time to try and convince people why they should vote for Hillary. Our only enemy right now is apathy and our inability to reach out to as many people as possible. That's it. So the election next Tuesday is not between Hillary and Trump as far as you and I are concerned. It's between those who are voting for Hillary and those who just simply aren't going to vote. All right? And we need to get the non-voters to the polls, because I'm confident the majority of them lean toward Hillary, but they need the outreach.
So obviously the majority of this call is focused on the idea that we have to win the election. I do want to do a quick flash forward. Assume we win the election. Assume that we successfully elect Hillary Clinton to the presidency. As someone who is a Bernie supporter, as somebody who's actually never supported a Clinton in your life, you didn't vote for Bill Clinton. You voted for Obama in 2008. You supported Bernie in the primary. You definitely come at it from a perspective that, DFA members, myself, were very, very familiar with. And the big question is, I got this from Cody Crow from Comanche, Oklahoma, and she's asking, assuming that Hillary is elected, how will we ensure that she feels compelled to push for the progressive agenda that we all created together?
Because she's going to know that we're the ones who did this for her. When we see when everything's tallied, and they're going to see how many Bernie voters voted for her, how many young people actually in the end came out, especially the young people, especially the 18 to 35-year-olds. I think everybody pretty much knows who African Americans are voting for, who Hispanics are voting for, who the majority of women are voting for. The one group that's sort of up in the air, and it's all about how many of them will show up, are the millennials. And what I've been telling millennials is this: I am not going to do what my parents did and wag my finger at you. All right? I understand why you're rebellious. I need you rebellious, actually. We need a certain segment of the population willing to go to North Dakota this week. All right? So I don't want to squelch your rebellion. But I also want you to know that you are the most powerful group in America in these next 7 days. You hold the power. You will determine who the next president of the United States is. And if you show up, and it's determined that because you showed up and Hillary won, this will be part of the story on November 9th and November 10th and November 11th, that it was the power of young adults that made the Clinton presidency happen. That will not be soon forgotten by Hillary Clinton. Every year in this country, 3 million 17-year-olds turn 18 and become eligible to vote. 3 million. That means in the next 4 years before the next election, before she's up for re-election, that's 12 million more young people. This is a revolution that's happening, and it's led by young people. And the last thing you should be doing right now is saying, I'm just going to stay in my bedroom. Why? You hold the power. You hold the fate of the most powerful country on earth in your 19 and 20-year-old hands. Use it. Use it. Let people know it. And I'm telling you, this will have a huge effect on what Hillary does. And I will say this, and I've promised this, and I mean it when I say it. You, I, all the people who voted for Bernie, we have told Hillary Clinton that on November 9th, the next day, we're going to be there for her. We're not going away. Bernie's not going away. We are going to be there, and we are going to have her back, and we are going to support her every step of the way until we have income equality, until women are paid the same as men, until there's paid maternity leave. Go down the whole list of things. If she doesn't do some things, if she goes back on her word and anything, we will also be there to challenge her. We are not going away. I'm not going away. Bernie's not going away. We are the majority. We hold the power. And really, I think the wonderful thing about Hillary, and I think Bill was this way too, they understood. They understood which way the wind was always blowing. Bill got elected coming out of the Reagan era. So we had the DLC, and we had, certain policies of his that some of us didn't agree with. But he was trying to see where the wind was. Hillary's done the same thing this year. That's why she's adopted so much of Bernie's platform. And we have to get as many people out to vote next Tuesday who are really essentially on our side of the fence and who may be feeling a little less excited about it. If they watch this, I don't want to plug this movie. You can watch it if you want, but
plug it.
Well, I only want to because I have seen the results. This has blown my mind. I was just going to put this up on YouTube, but this thing we're still number one on iTunes in the 12th day of its release. We are ahead of every other thing on iTunes. It's blown my mind. But I'm getting all this mail, emails, and other comments on Facebook from average Americans who've seen this movie, people who are not going to vote next week, people who are going to vote third party, some even who were thinking of voting for Trump, and then a lot of Hillary voters that just had lost their enthusiasm, especially since the FBI thing on Friday, and they are reinvigorated. I can't tell you how many people who have told me they weren't going to vote until they saw this movie. It has had an impact that even I didn't realize. I had to read the New Yorker review of this movie to understand what I actually did. it was seriously, he explained it. He said Michael Moore in this movie is speaking to four very different constituencies, and all at the same time without losing any of them. And it's true, and nobody walked out, and everybody stayed to hear it, and people were profoundly moved. And I'm an unlikely messenger because, as you said, I have never voted for her for president. I didn't vote. I voted for back in the 90s, for third party people. So I am not of the Clinton campaign. I am not making this call from Brooklyn tonight. This is coming from somebody you maybe wouldn't expect to be saying these things, but I mean them. I mean them deep in my heart, and I want to be part of history on Tuesday. It's not just because she's a woman, but the fact that we are going to elect the first woman is so monumental that I got to see this happen with Obama and now with Clinton. And is it going to be perfect? No. Is she a politician? Yes. Well, wake up. We live in the real world, of course. But don't discount. I have a daughter. She just had her first baby. She had a daughter. So now I have a granddaughter. This is like, these girls are growing up. They're going to see something different from what we saw. They're going to be inspired in a way that a lot of women, had to struggle in my generation. I'm not saying the struggle won't be there, but they're going to be able to see that just because they're a woman or a girl doesn't mean that they don't have a seat at the table. We're going to live in an era now where everybody has a seat at the table. And gradually we've been getting there. We've got a ways to go, but you can see now the light at the end of the tunnel, can't you? I see it, and I'm excited about it, and I want to live that moment on Tuesday night. I want to be there. I want to feel part of it, and I'm excited about it.
It's working.
I hope
I tell you what, it's working. You're making me excited too. I definitely, I've definitely in the category of feeling pretty nervous I understand how incredibly critical it is to defeat Trump. I think that we're looking at somebody that we're going to have to fight all the time if we were to have Trump elected. We're talking about a scary, dangerous America if Trump were elected. So I get it. We've got to defeat him. But it's been hard for me to really get behind pushing for Hillary. And I got to say, Michael, you just did a fantastic job of really helping amp up the excitement and make me want to make sure, in my heart, not just to defeat Donald Trump, but to make sure that we also elect Hillary, because that's the chance that we have as we move ahead. Now, Michael, I know that you've got to leave, but before you go, I just wanted to make the announcement, make sure that everybody heard this, that for the DFA members that are listening tonight, we're going to keep this conversation with Michael going this Thursday night, November 3rd, for a Facebook Live broadcast. That's starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Michael will be answering questions live from Facebook. Michael, is there anything special you have planned for that you want to preview for everyone now? Like, are we going to maybe be prank calls to some Trump supporters or something special happening?
We're ordering 500 pizzas to be delivered to Trump Tower.
Perfect. All right. See, it's going to be great. And it's likely that we'll get to answer a bunch of the questions that we didn't get to tonight then as well. So to join us for that, just log on to Facebook, then go to DFA's Facebook page. To do that, you can do that at facebook.com/DFA action a little before 7. And as soon as Michael starts going live, then we'll have that on the Facebook page there for you, streaming right off of Michael's page. All right, so I know you need to go, Michael. Is there anything you want to leave us with before you hop off?
My mom was born 8 months after women got the right to vote. Her father was born 3 years after the Civil War ended. That's my grandfather. So for me, that wasn't that long ago. It's not that long. It's just my grandfather is from essentially just the Civil War era. My mom from the suffragette era. You know, we've seen incredible things happen in this country, but we're a young country, and sometimes it takes a while to get it right. But we're living in such an important moment, and I can't stress enough the fact that we could make this happen. How long has it been, Jim, really, since we've had 2 terms of a Democrat in the White House and then another term or 2 right after that of a Democrat in the White House? It's probably FDR, am I right?
I think that's right.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, FDR and Truman. So, folks, it's been that long. FDR was the first person that my parents got to vote for. They were very proud of that fact. We're living in a time now where we could actually bring about a lot of his dream that he wasn't able to make happen in his lifetime. It won't happen if we end up with Donald Trump. It won't happen if both houses of Congress remain in the hands of the Republicans. I point to California to show what can happen when you finally have a Democrat in the executive branch and both houses now of the California legislature are both Democratic. Look at how they have turned the state around. They've pulled it out of Conan the Barbarian's near bankruptcy to a state that is solvent, to a state that has been passing law after law to treat people with kindness and respect, a state that's going to pass a number of ballot measures next week. That there's an anti-death penalty measure. There's the marijuana measure. There's they got rid of the 3 strikes thing in the last election, and this whole thing about the Obamacare rates are going to go up next year, which means, of course, we know the answer to that. We've got to get this out of the hands of the insurance companies. But the average is going to be a 25% increase. And you know what it's going to be in California? 5%. Why 5%? Because Democrats run the show. I'm not saying I want to live in a one-party system, but the Republicans have lost their right to have any say in this anymore. Hopefully a new party or 2 or whatever will come out of the ashes of the Republican Party that's going to crash and burn next Tuesday. But when we have Democrats running the show, what we're going to have is a better, kinder country to ourselves and to the rest of the world. and we're going to stop these polar ice caps from melting. We're going to do some of these big things that we've got to do. They won't get done unless we do them, and we have to be every bit as involved, and may I use the word rabid, as the supporters from the other side. We are in a dog-eat-dog fight over the next 7 days. I know we're liberals. I know we don't like these words. I don't know. I don't like to fight. I know you don't. None of us like to fight. I understand that. But folks, we have to stand up for our country here, and we're going to lose it in a profound way. In my movie, when I talk about Trump, if he wins, being the last president of the United States, I don't mean the country's going to end next Tuesday. I mean that the America that we have known and loved and seen it go through so many growing pains and get better along the way, that America, that's over. That America that we've tried to build under Barack Obama, that's over. And I mean over. And I cannot tolerate that. And I will not look back a month or a year from now at this week, the week that we're in right now. I will not look back at this and say, wow, geez, I should have done this, or I could have done that, or, I should have made 100 more calls. I won't be able to live with myself, seriously, if I didn't do everything I can physically do on 6 hours sleep. and I'm really lying because it's more like 4 hours. But I'm serious, folks. All of us, we are in the French Resistance. The tanks are 20 miles outside of Paris. That is the attitude that we have to have. And if we have it, because we're the majority, because there are more of us than there are of them, we will win. But we will not win if we behave as we often have in the past with that sort of, well, I'm voting. No, not enough. If that's what you're telling me, you're voting, then what you're telling me is, hello, President Trump. No, we're all in this. And I'm the same as you on this. I will be driving people to the polls, me, myself, and I. And I know a lot of people, filmmakers and others, writers, we're all going to be doing the same thing. They're on November 8th, we are all in the same boat. We're going to sink or swim together, and I refuse to sink. So please do your part. Please inspire others to do their part, and let's celebrate. Wow, 1 week from like right now. I'm looking at the watch. 1 week from right now,
you're going to be just finishing up having taken a bunch of people to the polls. Which is a fantastic way for you to make sure that you're doing everything you can on Election Day, and it's definitely a call to action. If Michael Moore can get in his car and drive people to the polls, then we can get on the phones, we can make phone calls, talk directly to voters, and try to get them to polls too. I want to thank you so much, Michael, and say I can't wait to see you on Thursday night where we'll continue this conversation on Facebook Live. All right, before we wrap this up, we've got a surprise guest calling in from on the ground at one of our endorsed campaigns for the U.S. House. In fact, in California, as Michael was just giving such a great example of how when we control, the legislatures in places like California, we can make sure that the Obamacare exchange actually has enough choices in it so that the prices don't go up outrageously. That was the whole point of having the exchanges. And when Republicans have limited the numbers of insurers that can be in the exchange or make it difficult for them, that's how we get the price increases. So, I think it's fantastic to make sure that we can have a wonderful DFA endorsed candidate like Nanette Berrigan on the call tonight to talk about her race really quickly. So, Nanette, she was the first Latina ever elected to the Hermosa Beach City Council, and right now she's running her critical congressional race in California to replace retiring Democrat Janice Hahn. She's been endorsed by Democracy for America. She's also endorsed by Bernie's org, Our Revolution, and many other leading progressive organizations. So I'd like to welcome Nanette to the call. Can you give us an update on the campaign?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. First, I want to thank Michael Moore for your tireless advocacy for progressive causes. I want to join and thank Jim and Charlie and thanking all the DFA members for making calls, including Bob Hughes and Drama Telfer. Thank you guys so much for your commitment.
Thank you, Manette, and hope to see you on Capitol Hill.
Thank you so much. Our race is going strong. I'm running against a guy who's the top recipient of taking money from oil companies in Sacramento, and now he's trying to take his fight for these companies to Washington. Just last week, we learned that the oil companies are jumping into this race to fund a super PAC, and they've funded this thing with $100,000. They've already started into doing negative mail, attack mailers, lying to people. Climate change is so important. We have to act now, and we have to be aggressive. The district I'm running in is one of the most heavily polluted districts in the entire country. You want to talk about looking at a place where climate change is happening right here. So they are working hard to try to get this guy elected. I've spent the last few years fighting an oil company that wanted to add neighborhood oil drilling and then out into the Santa Monica Bay. But we've been fighting back, and because of the help of DFA and our revolution and so many of the progressive groups, we have been able to show that the power of the people can win. And that's the one thing Michael Moore said that really resonates with me in my race is we may not be able to match him dollar for dollar, but the power of the people can overcome this. I did it when I fought an oil company. They spent $2 million in 2 months, yet we were able to mobilize people. And so right now we need help getting people on the phones, talking to voters. We're in a great position to win this thing. We've had a very strong fill program. We just opened a new office because there's been such a huge outpouring of support. I know we can do this. I know we can beat big oil. I know we can beat special interests. Again, my opponent is a big recipient of not just oil, tobacco, gambling, you name it. And so I need everybody's help. Today, I understand DFA is going to be sending out an email so people can make calls. Please get on the phones. Please talk to people. Climate change is real. It's happening right here in the district, and we'd love to have your help. We're seeing the health impacts right here and also happening on a global scale. So thank you all so much.
Well, Nanette, you're running a fantastic campaign, and obviously this is a really important seat to make sure that we keep. And, what I want to be clear about is that Nanette's race is one of several critical races that we're working to win around the country to elect Bernie revolutionaries up and down the ballot. And as you heard on this call, the next few days will determine who controls not just the White House for the next 4 years, but also who controls critical positions for U.S. Senator to the school board. So here's what we need to do. Every single person listening to this right now needs to sign up to contact voters. There are call from home shifts happening tomorrow night for Nanette. We're going to be calling for Morgan Carroll, who's fighting to win in Colorado. This weekend, we're calling for Catherine Cortez Masto, running for Senate in Nevada, Deborah Ross in North Carolina, Russ Feingold in Wisconsin, and we have shifts happening every day from now until the election. So trust me, when I say whether you're able to make calls to voters for 20 minutes or for 20 hours between now and the election, we're here to help you do it. So this is how you do it. We'll send you an email tomorrow to try to help encourage you to make the sign up. But you don't need to wait till tomorrow. You can do it right now. Just go to dfadialer.com. That's DFADIALER.com and sign up right now. And if you're listening to this call using our web streaming page, you can also just click the button, sign up to call voters, on the right-hand side to sign up right now. So the bottom line here is this simple. When our voters show up at the polls, we win. When they don't, we lose. And study after study shows that direct person-to-person contact is the most effective way to convince someone to vote. So let's make those calls. And then, once you've signed up to call voters, make sure you mark your calendar for this Thursday, November 3rd at 7 p.m. for our special Facebook Live event with Michael Moore. And who knows, if you call voters on Wednesday night with the DFA dollar, maybe we'll give you a shout-out on Thursday night like we did tonight for Dermot Telfer and Bob Hughes at the beginning of this call. So just make sure you tune in at about 7 p.m. Eastern on DFA's Facebook page at facebook.com/DFA Action. And make sure you go right now to sign up to make sure you call voters around the country. And with that, it's time to wrap this up. Thank you again for all your hard work. Let's go win this. Good night.